Now, teen talk, okay, to young people. I actually have two of the most wonderful young people in the world, okay? Hannah Lauren and Noah Tristan. My two, I have a 16-year-old and a 14-year-old, and they are the most wonderful teenagers you could possibly imagine. And when I say that, I'm not, honking my own horn here, because their mother does a great job with them. Their stepdad does a great job with them. And they have a village. They have a church community of people that are all involved and all trying to help them accomplish their goals. It gives them a very healthy self-esteem, and it helps push them to a higher standard of living. And that's what I want to promote. Okay, I can't take all the credit for it. I do love them. I do discipline them, and I do my part. But they have a really great support structure, and that's what every young person needs. And my story, which is very unique because, it's not unique because I was raised without a father. Okay, a lot of us in urban America, in the city areas, we come from split households. And a lot of children and teenagers and young people, they really, really reflect a lot of their lives and their situation in their life based on what they don't have. For example, when I was a young person growing up, and we'll talk about my high school years specifically, because that's when I had the most problems. Okay, I've never been a good person at math, science, so never in my areas of expertise. I've been more of an English and a communicator, obviously. But when I was, say, 14, 15 years old, without a father and without my mother being married, and on top of that, my mother had her own issues. She struggled with various issues, full-time job working at General Motors. She was on second shift most of the time. I was in my teenage years when she was working. So basically, when I came home, I was always coming home to an empty house. And I had nobody there who would give me a constant push toward doing my homework, not hitting the streets, not running around, making sure I was doing what I was supposed to be doing in terms of chores, and just giving me an environment that was conducive to learning and to having discipline and structure. And without structure, I know a lot of us get caught up in our day-to-day activities. We have jobs and we have babysitters and various things, but a child's life needs structure. Teenagers won't ask for structure. They don't know how to communicate certain needs of theirs. But when they have someone there who's saying, hey, you know what, it's time to do homework at this time of the day. You need to read for 20 or 30 minutes every day, homework or not. When they have these implementations of structure, it gives them so much more of an opportunity to excel because they're not held based on their own abilities and inabilities. In life, even as adults, when we're left on our own, a lot of times we don't perform nearly as well. And I know that many people have heard the old adage that people will do whatever they can get away with. Well, that is applicable more times than not. So anyway, basically, let me talk about my ninth grade year, okay? Because this is where it gets really interesting. My ninth grade year, I got 44 referrals. That means I was sent to the principal's office 44 times. Now, there's not even 44 weeks in the school year. So I was pretty much getting a referral or two every week. And I know it sounds really horrible. I know my son, Denaryl, my oldest son, he's heard all these stories, and he's doing a great job despite my stories. He's in the Marine Corps right now, and I love him. He's doing a great job. And I do appreciate the fact that when I tell him these stories, he was able to hear where his dad came from and still focus on having a higher standard for himself. And that's what I want Noah and all the people who are listening to be able to do also. Don't say, hey, well, you know what, if you can get 44 referrals, then I can do it too. No, because I was extremely lucky. I mean, I was so lucky. And when I point out all the friends of mine, the best friends who ended up in prison, who did their stints in prison once and twice because when they went in at a young age, their life was affected. And they, the recidivism rate in prison, the return rate in prisons are really high. Okay, and if you get there at a young age, you learn prison, you learn that lifestyle. And when you learn that lifestyle, it's hard to wash out. I don't care who you are. When you go and live with a group of people and you adapt that culture, you can't just unadapt that culture. You can't just drop that culture. I know that my father, he spent time in prison, and he came and lived with me. And I was 17 years old by then. I needed a father in my life, but realistically, I needed him before I was 17 years old. But he came into my life when I was 17 years old, and I actually got a chance to live with him for a little while. And he had been fresh out of prison, okay? And I love my father. No matter what, I love my father. And I've said that a million times. I love my father, okay? A lot of things about him I would never be like, and I don't want to emulate, but I do love him, okay? But when he came home from prison, he ate differently, he walked differently, he laughed differently. There was things that he did not do because he'd been in prison. He wouldn't laugh and smile the same way that everybody laughs and smiles because he came from a different environment. And my dad is only like 5'4", maybe. He's shorter than I am. He's really muscular, but he's shorter than I am. So when he was in prison, I'm assuming that there were certain things that he had to do to present his image of masculinity and to promote this "don't mess with me" type of attitude. But he couldn't wash that off when he came home. When he got out of prison, he couldn't come home and be a loving father and say, "Hey, son," and smile and laugh. He still ate with his arms around his plate, big arms around his plate, so nobody would grab food or do it. I mean, I didn't understand it all, but all I knew was that wasn't what I wanted for me. I didn't know how to go around those things, but I did realize that I wasn't going to follow that same path. I remember Pontiac Northern. Okay, I went to Pontiac Northern High School for my 9th grade year, and after that, I was moved to Benton Harbor, Michigan, and I went to a school in Coloma. But my 9th grade year, that's where I got the 44 referrals, and I was such just the kind of kid that did not want to be still and do what he was supposed to do. I was bored. I mean, I remember one time there was a teacher named Miss Marshall. All right, I remember her specifically. She's a Caucasian lady, kind of smaller lady, and I got in so much trouble in her algebra class that she would write the referral out with my name on it and disturbing classroom or disrupting class behavior, something like that, and she would fill it out before the class started. And I'll never forget, one day I came into class, prepared to be silly and go wild or whatever, and she's like, "Denaryl, come here." And I'm like, yo, what's up? I didn't do nothing yet. And she said, "Here, I have this whole book of referrals filled out already, because I'm not going to have to take the time to write a referral for you, because I already know what you're going to bring to the table." She already knew. My reputation preceded me in class so much to where she knew I was going to be a disruption that she just wanted to get me out of the way quick as possible. And there's a lot of kids out there like that. There's a lot of kids out there who have not mastered self-control. Now, what I needed at that time, I needed somebody to be standing outside that door and tell me they were going to beat me upside the head or something if I kept doing what I was doing. I needed somebody who was willing to step outside of their comfort zone for me. I didn't, those little cute conversations where your mom's sitting at the corner of the table, you're at the kitchen table, and she's saying how hard she works and how she really wants you to do better. That wasn't what I needed, because I was becoming a man. And I believe firmly that men get to the point where we need other men to make us sharper. That's just what I believe. When a man's being punished, they send him to prison. When a man needs to be changed and conditioned to do something more difficult, they put him in the military. They put him in training scenarios where they're around men. And when your mother has to talk to you with her feminine way of doing things and her hurt or disappointed viewpoint, that's not always going to be powerful enough. Depending on your relationship with your mother, that may or not be positive or powerful enough to get you to where you need to be. And in my case, it wasn't. Now, I had an auntie named Aunt Regina, okay? Now, everybody, I should hope, have somebody in their life who lets you see what it should be like. And she was a single parent. And my cousin Juan and Keisha, I love my cousins. They're both like outstanding people right now. They're doing really well, working numerous jobs, college graduate, all that kind of stuff. Accomplished everything they set out to accomplish that I've ever seen, okay? And they're really wonderful people. But she was a hardcore mother. I mean, hardcore to the teeth. She didn't take nothing, okay? I'll never forget one time my cousin Juan, and he gonna get mad at me for telling this on television, but he's in Detroit, so he may not see this in time. But I'll never forget, he got caught listening to NWA. And I listened to NWA all the time, but nobody would catch me because my mother wasn't around enough. And see, I actually held that against her, because I knew what I needed and I knew what I was capable of. Like a lot of you teenagers out there, you know what you're capable of, but you're waiting on somebody else to give it to you. You're waiting on somebody else to force you into what you know you need to be doing. And it's not because, you're a young person, but because that's a human trait. That's what we do sometimes. If we haven't been conditioned otherwise, that's what we know to do. We know to hold people accountable for our own success. And that's horrible, but it happens more often than not. Anyway, let me tell you a specific story about my Aunt Regina. My cousin Juan got caught listening to NWA, and I'm pretty sure that his mother sat down with him and made him listen to this tape with her. And now, if any of you know NWA, you know the type of content. Now, this is back in the day before, 95% of all hip hop music was just cussing and, and lewd, material. This is back in the day when, the Fresh Prince was out, Jazzy Jeff, the Fresh Prince, LL Cool J, Run DMC, NWA and Ice-T. They were like some of the first rappers to come out there just cussing, talking about gangster stuff and selling drugs and smoking and doing all kinds of things that we hear all the time now. But my Aunt Regina, she said, you know what? Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this music is better for you than what I know it is. So how about we sit down and listen to this NWA tape together? Now, my cousin Juan, I remember he was a really good kid. But of course, he wanted to listen to music and do things that other teenagers wanted to do also. But he sat down with his mother, and he was in tears by the second song. Because his mother, she's very antagonizing. She's very strong. That's good. Oh, what? Yeah, after police? Yeah, that's good. Okay, really? And so he had to look his mom in the eye while listening to all this stuff. And depending on your relationship with your mother, and especially back then, it wasn't going to fly. I'm pretty sure she gave him a beating when that song went off that he would never forget, because he told me about it, and I won't even forget the beating that he got from listening to NWA. And all I took from that was, wow, I wish somebody would whip me for listening to the music I listen to. Isn't that weird? You probably don't know this, and you probably don't recognize this, but young adults, when they find that there's things missing in their lives, sometimes it creates rebellion. Sometimes they want to blame somebody. They want to say, well, you know what, my mom's not doing this, or I don't have this, or we don't have a car, or we don't have that, and I'm going to hold this against my mother or against my father. Or this is going to be my reason, my underlying reason for not adjusting my behavior the way I know I should, because everybody else is not doing their part. Teenagers do that. They do it all the time. Now, that's not to say that's going to affect their life. That's not going to push you further in life. You're not going to get any further in your life by blaming someone else. But that's what we do, and that's exactly what I did. I had another problem. I hated homework. Hated homework. Well, it wasn't the idea of doing homework at home. It was the process of carrying books from school to my house and not be able to have snowball fights and run around. It was the smallest thing, but it stopped me from doing my homework. It was just that simple. I had a few classes where, back in the day, I'm not sure if everyone has homeroom nowadays, but when I had a homeroom, I would do homework in homeroom. It made sense. Homework, homeroom, the room for homework. So I did all my homework there. Hid my books, left them in my locker room, left them at home. Half the time, didn't even have my books. As smart as can be. Teachers told me so many times, Denaryl, you're definitely the smartest kid in the classroom. You know you can do the work. Why are you not doing the work? Because I didn't have to. Because I knew I would pass with my bare minimum effort. I knew that I was good enough to, whether I'm going to talk somebody into it or whether I'm going to take a final exam at the last minute, just do just enough to pass. And that was my standard. That was my complete standard. Did not push myself. I did not give 100%. I was not trying to be the smartest kid in the classroom. I wasn't applying any of the things that God had given me. Any of the things that everyone who recognized in my family, that, hey, that kid is smart. He has a great vocabulary. He reads books. I did a lot of positive things, but I would not apply those to my academic success. I didn't put them where they counted the most, and that's what I credit to a lack of maturity. Now, I have children, and I always tell people, when I tell this story, that my daughter, and I guess it's common sense because women say it all the time, that women mature faster than men. And my daughter, Denaryl, she matured at a rate. I'll never forget watching her, the way she handled her social issues, in junior high and high school, and how my son, who has always been very smart and very intelligent kid, but he was more into playing basketball, just didn't really care about a lot of stuff. His grades was, right, whatever, we'll work on it. But Denaryl, I remember her stressing out one day because of a grade that she didn't think she was going to get right. And I talked to her about going to your teacher in advance and finding out what the grade's going to be before it comes out, while you still have a chance to affect it. And that's a good tool. If you're a young person in school and you get surprised when your report card comes out, it's your fault. That teacher's right there every day. Go up there on a Thursday or Friday, say, hey, where am I at in the class? What grade am I going to get? But my daughter was actually able to care about her grades. She cared. My son could care less. Okay, he couldn't have cared less, and she did, and that's your maturity. When you're mature, you care about your grades. I don't care how smart you think you are. If your grades are failing, if there is an actual way of grading and evaluating where you are that people are going to be able to look at, and it's documented, and it's going to be there forever, and you don't affect that, that's a lack of maturity. There is no way that I want any piece of paper anywhere saying I failed at anything. And you're in a classroom with other people who are succeeding and doing it every day. That's a lack of maturity. Those guys, the guys that dress nice, or the girls, young lady who dress nice, they sharp to death all the time, but fail in classes, don't do homework, That's a maturity issue. I don't care how much money they got in their pocket. I don't care how many jobs they have. I don't even care if they have kids already. When you're not concerned with what society is most concerned with in your life, that's a maturity and a priority issue. Think about this. Do you know how many young people are chasing the wrong ships? They're swimming after the wrong ship. Instead of chasing scholarships, they're chasing relationships. That's backwards. That's backwards. Scholarship is going to get you a lot further than a relationship will right now in your life. Stay focused. Set your, like I say, put your blinders on. And when you're in school, pay attention to your parents. Pay attention to what the people that are loving you and taking care of you are telling you to pay attention to. Because that's maturity. So many young people, like myself, you talk yourself out of opportunities. You push yourself out of the opportunity for success because somebody's setting you up for success and you're fighting them. You're working against it. How many times are you going to work against somebody trying to help you? Do you really think that your mother and your teacher and all these people who have life attachments to helping children or to being in your life are not trying to give you the best opportunities for success? Think about that. Who is actually trying to hurt you? Who is making the bad decisions in your life? Is it your parents making the bad decisions for you, or are you making the bad decisions for you? When you look back at the grades you got last year, can you say it's somebody else's fault, or is it pretty much your fault? All that you can affect, everything that's going on in your life, you can take some ownership of. And that's where your maturity comes in. If you want to get some props from your parents, let me tell you something. You say, hey, listen, I'm going to be on the honor roll next month, okay? But this is what I need from you. I need to be able to stay up till 11 o'clock, or I need to be able to get, $30 a week. I need to get a greater allowance. I need to get to use the car more. I need to get this because I'm going to give you this. That's maturity. That's respectability. When a young person is talking something respectable, grown people stop and listen. Like, hold on, you going to do what? Okay, I like that. I like to see you go there. That's where I want you to stay. I will work with you and I will support you when you are making mature decisions. And that's how pretty much everyone in your area feels about you. Think I'm kidding. Start doing some successful things. Start coming to them with bargains. Start coming to them with requests, but have something to offer. That's important to them. That's important to you. That's the benefit of being a child, because I can't do that to anybody else. I can't walk up to somebody and say, hey, listen, I'm going to do great at everything that's important to me, and I want you to reward it and show your appreciation for it. It's not going to happen. Nobody cares when you get older. But right now, you have a support system that cares about you and cares about your success. So if you come to the table with something respectable, you'll get some communication. We can do some business. Guaranteed. Now, there's pretty much 4 things, okay? And these are the most important things that I feel in terms of working with young people and in terms of experiencing the academic excellence that you want. You're going to need 1, the ability to ask. Just the ability to ask for help. That's all you're going to need, is the ability to ask for help. You're going to need discipline to sit down and construct in your environment the proper area to do what you got to do. You're going to have to be able to say no to some phone calls, no to some text messages, and it takes discipline. It takes being big. You can't be pushed and bullied by every little idea that comes out. You need some right habits. The right habits. You have to form habits out of doing the right thing. Do them so many times that they become a habit, so they become an expectation in your area. Ability, discipline, habits, and drive. You have to want something out of life. You have to not want something from life. You have to say, prison, sleeping on couches, I don't want that for myself. I'm going to have a nice car. I'm going to have a career. I'm going to have a family, a wife, a husband, children. I'm going to live a full life, and this is how I get it. This is the path toward academic excellence. Those 4 things. You need the ability to ask. Open your mouth. Excuse me, can you go say that one more time? I didn't catch that. You need to be able to do that to your teacher, to your professor. You need to do that. Ability to ask, discipline, habits, and drive. Those 4 things. Work on those 4 things for me, and I promise you, academic excellence is right around the corner. Don't be a student, be a scholar. I mean it. Okay, here we go. Now, this is the part of the show where I get to give a little bit of freestyle motivation, okay? Usually, I try to pair it up with the informational part of the show, and today's show has been about ADHD and a teen talk, okay? And I actually put this together because I think it kind of fit, and it fits in my life. Remember, every show is based on things that I'm not good at, things I need help with, or things that I'm trying to get better at, okay? Or either I just see a need in the community and I think I can help. Basically, the topic of this here, motivational speech or talk or whatever, if you will, is lowering your standards causes your standards to be lower. That's the way it is in my mind. And let me just explain how I see that and how I think of that. Have you ever put yourself in a situation where you told yourself you didn't care about the outcome, so you're going to purposely and intentionally lower your standards? Like, for example, whether it's a job that you feel like, it's really not on your level, but, I'll just do it for now. And because I'm at this job and it's not really on my level, it's not the type of work that I do per se, or what I'm educated or trained for, then I don't take it as seriously. So I choose to lower my standards. And it happens, everybody does it sometime, one day your standards for appearance may not be as high as your standards the next day. But in life, it has an effect on you. And I want to illustrate this effect that lowering your standards has. Just work with me here. Even in terms of getting a job, now in terms of relationships. In relationships, sometimes we lower our standards. Sometimes we say, hey, you know what? I don't want to be by myself, so I'm just going to, I know this one person who I really don't want to deal with. They're not boyfriend material. They're not husband material. They're not wife material, but I'm going to deal with this person anyway just because I don't want to be by myself. Well, sometimes, sometimes in life, when you do that, you stay in that situation for longer than what you expect. Now, when you're in that situation, you only have a few ways you can handle it, okay? Now, when you're working a job that you know is beneath your level, you're going to adjust your standards. Okay, well, I'm not going to do as much of this. I'm not going to do as much of that. But when you repeat that effort every day, when you repeat that lack of concern every day, what does that do to you? Do you think that sharpens you up? Do you think that makes you better, or do you think that makes you worse? What happens when you begin to say, hey, you know what? I'm only going to deal with this kind of person because, well, she was available or he's available, but then you start seeing that person on a regular basis. What's going to happen? Eventually, that's your standard. Eventually, that defines you. That's where you're at. People see that. You practice that. Anything that you practice and you repeat, you get better at. It becomes more and more your character. It defines you. You cannot take an action out of your life and say, hey, this is what I do, but it doesn't define me because I'm not trying my best. It does define you. My job and my work ethic when I'm at my actual job, when I say I don't care because it's not communicating in what I do for a living, it still defines me to all my coworkers. It becomes habit. To have a decreased effort becomes a habit. And when you have a decreased effort as a habit, now you're carrying around some type of a potential virus for whatever you're trying to engulf in. If you're trying to succeed at something, now you have this low standard habit that can come into your life and jeopardize whatever you're working on because you lowered your standards and you chose to not care for a little while. But that little while became longer. And next thing you know, your standards are lower. You're living with somebody who you never wanted to date in the first place. You got a baby by them. You're working a job that you never wanted to work in the first place because you never should have been there. Because you lowered your standards in the first place. Lowering your standards makes your standards lower in the long run. Think about it. Focus on keeping your standards and maintaining a high standard and a high velocity and keeping it 100%. If you keep it 100 in your life, and if you listen to self-talks, you listen to motivational speakers, and you're paying attention to where you're at, then you won't lower your standards. But you have to pay attention because you do not want a habit of having a low standard. It's not cool. And it's going to be detrimental to your success later on in life. Don't forget I told you that, all right? This is Denaryl Mojet with Urban Wellness. Thank you for watching. dkmojet1@gmail.com for any comments or questions or anything that you want to give me. Other than that, see you later.